This mix was sent in by Finn. Finn, I can already tell by looking at it, this is way too quiet, so I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Also, it's like 9 minutes long, so it better be fucking good. All right, not gonna lie, so far it sounds like somebody that's like learning guitar and is trying to play through their amp, but their parents keep telling them to turn it down. It's this weird combination of that feedback thing going on, but also it sounds like the gain is set so low that it's like barely picking up some of the notes. Like, what the fuck's going on, man? All right, once everything kicks in, it does sound a little bit better. Drums sound decent, bass sounds decent, even the guitar sounds kind of okay for the most part. But the whole intro, it just felt like everything was so low gain that it was barely picking up. And especially considering the fact that I had to turn this track up like 9 dB just to get it to like a normal listening volume, there's definitely something going on there. Like you probably have something leveled in a way that it's like barely picking up in your signal chain. So figure out what's going on there. The bass tone is okay, but it's a little muddy. It's also kind of fighting with the kick. So I would try to carve out certain frequencies in either the kick or the bass or both to allow the other ones to shine through because they're just straight up fighting each other right now. You also probably got to pull out a little bit of low mid somewhere in the bass because, again, it just sounds a little bit muddy. You're probably trying to use that to fill in what's lacking from the low end of the guitar. I would take out a little low mids in the bass and add some low end of the guitar back in so it still sounds pretty full, but just it sounds a little muddy in the bass. It's kind of, just gross sounding. And man, honestly, it doesn't sound that bad. It is a little boring. Again, it's like a 9-minute song. I'm only a minute and a half in. I'm not going to keep listening to this. You definitely have some overall like output volume problems because this was really, really quiet when you sent it to me. I don't know if you're like aiming for a certain number or something for whatever reason, but like don't do that. Like yes, you want to make sure that it's not too loud, but you also want to make sure it's not too quiet. Because again, in the beginning, it sounds like the gain on the guitar is set so low that it's barely even picking up the notes at all. So you got to figure out what the issues are there. That's really probably your main issue. Other than that, just the bass and the kick are fighting each other. Again, things might get crazy later on in the song. I'm not going to get that far because the song's way too fucking long. But yeah, I mean, from what I've heard, those are your main issues, just some overall volume and like gain staging things and the bass fighting the kick. This mix was sent in by Omar. Okay, this fucking hurts, first of all. I know that's what you were going for based on the genre tag you had on this, but like, dude, way too much piercing high mid frequencies. You asked about the balance of everything. The balance is way off, especially the drums. First of all, the drum tones don't sound that great, but also just like the kick is completely disappearing. Like, you really can't hear the kick at all. Snare is definitely way too quiet. Cymbals are way too high. Overall, you have way too much top end in this compared to everything else. You do have a little bit of low end and a little bit of mid range, but honestly, I feel like because the balance of everything is so far off, that's really throwing off my perception of the bass and the mid range right now. Yeah, man, you have so much focus in the high mids. Your lows are definitely way too low in volume. Like everything below probably like 400 could come up a little bit, and then everything below 200 could come up a lot. And like you're also missing some top end, like talking like above like 5 6K. It just again, everything is like really focused in the like 500 hertz to like 2K area, and it makes everything sound thin. It makes it sound harsh. It's just that's a lot of problem. Again, some of this could probably be fixed by balance. Like I said, the kick drum is like inaudible. If you just turn the kick drum up a lot, that would probably help to balance things out quite a bit. Yeah, so there's balance problems, there's EQ problems, there's just also just source tone problems. The drums don't sound great. The bass and the guitar sound interesting, I guess, but I feel like you still could have refined those a little bit more, especially the bass. The bass sounds really muddy and inarticulate. It's kind of matching a lot of what the guitar is doing, so the articulation from the guitar is kind of giving the perception that the bass has a little bit more attack, but like it really doesn't. The bass is really undefined. You probably didn't put new strings on before recording the bass. Like there's a lot of problems here. Again, I know you're kind of going for like a noise genre anyway, but like it could still be done better. There's a lot of issues here. I'm not going to be able to give you enough tips to really fix this with what I have to work with here. Like really, you need to start with the source tones. You need to get better tones at the source, especially the drum sounds need a lot of work. Then the bass tone could be tightened up a little bit. Then you got to get the balance of everything better, and then you can start worrying about things like EQ, compression, like all those things. But you have a lot of problems at the foundation of this, and until those are fixed, everything else after the fact doesn't matter. So the balance during the mix, the processing during the mix, none of that matters until the source tones are good. So source tones first, fix those, then work on your balance, then start processing. Like don't even start processing until you have the source tones and the balance of the faders dialed in really well. If you're wearing headphones, I highly recommend you take them off before watching this. This mix was sent in by Jan. Jan, you actually asked about the master more than the mix. I can tell by looking at the waveform that you squashed this to hell. So we'll see how it sounds. Okay, very little low end. Your mid-range is almost non-existent. You have way too much going on in the top end. It sounds like you just boosted the crap out of the top end, and then again, yeah, you crushed the shit out of this. I'm gonna turn this down a little and try to keep listening, but it's really harsh. It's really overcompressed, and like I'm literally 6 seconds into this, and I already don't want to keep listening. Dude, you have very little below 100 hertz. Like, especially 50 hertz is like non-existent, and that's a big part of the sound of any song is that like 50, 60 hertz area. You got, yeah, the giant scoop in the mid-range. You're also missing a lot of top end. Like, it looks like you cut everything above 5K. It's just, everything is so focused in the upper mids right now. That's why it sounds so fucking harsh. And then you also just over compressed it, and that's making all that harshness even worse and more apparent. This does not sound good, man. All right, there's nothing that I can do about the overcompression, but let's see if I can try to help this with a bit of EQ. I'm not very hopeful, but I like a challenge, so... Okay. You gave me no low end in the whole fucking track. And then you slapped me with a massive bass drop after I boosted the low end. Like, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you didn't realize that I was going to try to boost the low end here, but like, you can't have no low end the whole track and then all of a sudden have just a massive sub drop. Like, what the fuck? All right, clearly not perfect, but like, what are you doing? I'm sorry, but like, what the fuck is this? This mix was sent in by Ben.
Faces, what's hard, the pain they say you don't even love these people that have made us this.
All right, man, it was a cool riff, but like a cool riff doesn't really make a good sounding song. There's a lot of problems here. Yeah, it's really muddy. I'm assuming it's a bass synth and not a bass guitar, or it might actually be both together, but that's super muddy. Other than that, the guitar doesn't really have a lot of clarity. The drums don't really have a lot of energy. They're not really... The drums also aren't loud enough. They need to come up a lot. Like, I need to feel the kick in this, because, like, especially with this kind of a groove to it, like, I want to feel the punch of that kick. I want to feel the energy of it. But, like, overall, like, tones aren't great. Mix is lacking energy. Performance is lacking energy. When the vocals come in, the vocals don't sound good. Like, it sounds like the vocals were recorded with a really, really, like a USB mic, like a really crappy mic. Like there's not good quality in the vocal sound at all. Like that's the only way I can describe the vocal sound. It sounds like they were recorded with a really shitty mic in a really shitty room. Honestly, it almost sounds like the vocals were recorded through your phone mic.
Gonna make the empathy of our peers. There's some striking me blood draining from my ears. There was no choice but to...
Yeah, dude, you're for sure like using BandLab or something on your phone. It sounds like a fucking voice memo. Like, it literally sounds... Dude. I don't know, some of the tones aren't terrible. Like, they could definitely use some cleaning up. But the drums, especially, like, I'm not feeling the energy of the drums. The bass tone is pretty cool, but it's muddy. The guitar tone's okay, but it's a little harsh. It's lacking a little bit of low end. Like, I don't know, man. Like, the vocal tone is probably the worst of all of it, but just overall, it's lacking energy. It doesn't feel like things are gelling together really well. It's just... It sounds like a demo. At best, it sounds like a demo. There's a lot of problems here. Like, I can't really even... It's problems that need to be fixed from the ground up. It's not something that, like, a couple little tweaks are going to fix, so I'm not going to be able to give you enough pointers to fix this in this video, but, like, yeah, there's a lot of issues. The first thing is, get a real fucking vocal mic. Like, doesn't even have to be crazy expensive. Literally, an SM57 would sound better than whatever the fuck you recorded the vocals with here. $100 microphone, nothing crazy. A 57 into a fucking Focusrite Scarlett would sound better than your phone mic.